Hello, Mr. Nygren here. Welcome to Faerun, Forgotten Realms Total War, now known as Faerun Total War, but the menu is a bit outdated. I believe originally this mod was named Faerun Total War, then the name changed to Faerun Forgotten Realms Total War, and then it was changed back to Faerun Total War, but the background picture is a bit dated. Okay, so Faerun is the continent, this continent, and Forgotten Realms is the world in which this continent is located, and Total War is the mod, and the IP or setting is Dungeons and Dragons, actually, the tabletop game, and this is the medieval Total War Kingdoms mod based on Dungeons and Dragons and the Faerun setting. In I believe Forgotten Realms, the world, there are more continents than just Faerun, but this mod takes place in Faerun, and this is not all of Faerun. I believe there is one additional area. It goes down here, and then there is like an ice here with a bunch of jungles and stuff, but that was cut. The original creator on the first map, he had all of Faerun, and then I believe in the second map, after he remade it, because there were some problems with stability and stuff, so he remade it, and then he decided to make it slightly smaller in scale. So instead of including Schalt and other areas here, he cut those areas from the map and included only this part. But it's still a maxed out map. It has 199 regions and is used to the max. It's just that he cut a few areas so that he could focus on fewer like factions in this area, instead of having even more areas that would need to be filled with factions and stuff. Okay, so Faerun Total War mod first conceived and that started development in 2011. It was modder Vladvid over on or Total War Center that started the mod in I believe 2011. On August 22nd, 2011, he wrote in the old thread Total War Center, and before that he had posted, I believe, on the Total War forums, which is a different site. That was pretty much dead already back then. Where he posted the first post, I believe. So the mod is old. It took, I believe, 9 years before the first demo was released, and that happened on January 30th, 2020, and then an update on October 20th, 2020, and then a patch on October 22nd, 2020, and then there were some work done, and an article was posted in, I believe, May or April 2021 that promised another release, version 0.3, but that release never came, and the mod kind of died in late 2021. But modder Azurbanipal, one of the core modders, he joined Vladvid in 2014 in April, I believe, and he worked on models for the mod. Vladvid also did models, so both of them worked on models. Vladvid did the map, and he did a lot of the art and other stuff too. Then there were others that did the concept art and coding, scripts, ancillaries, textures, and such. But anyway, Azurbanipal never stopped creating new models, so we had enough content to make another release, and we released version 08 or 0.8 on New Year's Eve. Actually, I had problems running the game because I updated the DirectX 9 drivers to get another game running, I believe Dungeons and Dragons Online, and then it failed, but for some reason Medieval 2 had problems instead, and I could start the mod, but whenever I believe it started to crash randomly in the campaign and stuff. and I thought it was the mod, but then it worked fine on other computers. So then I realized it was the updates. I had to fix that. I believe I had to uninstall the new DirectX drivers. I had to repair all the old ones. I had to, I believe, restart the computer, and I also had to verify Medieval 2 to the War. In essence, reinstalling Medieval 2 and repatch the .exe files, Medieval 2.exe and the Medieval 2.exe and the Kingdoms.exe with the 4 GB patch, and I had to move out all the mods from the folder for that, otherwise they would be erased when verifying the files. So essentially what I had to do was uninstall the new DirectX updates, repair the old ones, move out all the mods into the common folder of Steam. The mods folder was moved out with all the mods, and then verify the files, essentially reinstall Medieval 2 to the original files, and then repatch the .exe files, copy the Medieval 2.exe and rename it Kingdoms with a big K, and then patch them with the 4 GB patch, both files, and then reinsert the mods folder, and I had to restart the computer before, you know, trying to play the game. And I believe it has been fixed now, because the last time I uploaded a video of this mod, like a week ago or so, I believe I showed off the new rebel garrisons in the main campaign, and when I were in the audio section I got an error message that there were some problems with running certain aspects of the game, and those same problems caused the game to crash. It turned 62 to 82 or so, but it should be fixed now. Okay, so we will jump straight to the campaign. So in this mod, if you go to single player and grand campaign, you have only one campaign, the main campaign, the fastest campaign. You have 23 factions to play as, and it's the main campaign. If you play hot seat campaign, because I failed to add the custom campaigns to the single player, but I never played through the single player anyway. So here you have the grand campaign, where you have this map, and you have all of these factions playable. So the rebels are not supposed to be here, but as this is a beta or work in progress version, I didn't remove them. I used the rebels or minor factions for play testing the mod. Okay, but then we have the Kingdom of Cormanthyr, we have the Kingdom of Theater, the Centrim, the Republic of Zambia, Republic of Amn, the Magocracy of Unter, the Confederation of Shondat, Kingdom of Moonshee Isles, Thea Nation, Kingdom of Aglarond, Empire of Mullorand, Confederation of Lurar, Empire of Kalimshan, Captain's Confederation, Lords of Waterdeep, Kingdom of Tamara, Nation of Rashomon, the Elves of Cormanthyr, Kingdom of Many Arrows, which are the Orcs, Empire of the Shadowar, Lords of Delsun, Duchy of Baldur's Gate, and the Kingdom of Impeltur. And the Kingdom of Impeltur is only playable in this campaign, because in the two other custom campaigns you have named forts all over the map. That's the difference. Main difference between this campaign and the other two is that this campaign do not have any of the forts placed out. The other two campaigns have named forts all over Faerun that are using princes' agents as names for the forts. So you have forts all over Faerun with the correct names. They represent everything from towns, villages, to cities and castles and fortresses, etc. And the princess agents are the names, and the AI will never move the names, but as the player, it seemed that the Saxons faction, which was used when I modded the game in January 2025, I found that the Saxons faction, the vanilla faction, wasn't in use by the game, so I converted it to be the Kingdom of Impeltur and used like I divided units between the Mara had like over 27 units, the Kingdom of Damara, and in 2020 or 2021, Vladovid, or Wizard of Turmish on mod B, Vladovid on Total War Center, the original creator of the mod, he had mentioned he wanted to take parts of the Damara roster and make the Kingdom of Impultur this faction. And so I used essentially parts of the Damara roster for Impultur. I made like this art here, made the symbols for the faction. I did the coding, changing the Saxons vanilla faction into the Kingdom of Impultur. What I didn't know was that the Saxons faction was used for the named forts. So essentially when you play as the Kingdom of Impultur in the other two campaigns, if you do that, you can do that if you unlock it in the desk strat file, then you get to see everywhere where there is a named princess or a named fort. So essentially the Kingdom of Impultur gets to see everywhere essentially, because they have agents in the forms of names for the forts all over the map. And if you go into the agents tab and select the princesses, then you can even move them. It takes forever to move them because of all the scripts and such involved with them. But yeah, I felt like the faction didn't work as playable in the other two campaigns, but in this campaign they work. Also, why the mod has many campaigns is because originally Vladovid had made a campaign with a merchant script in which there are like merchants spawning. They are not really merchant agents, they are more like diplomats, and it's like a cool script where you can sell artifacts and auxiliaries and such. It aimed to represent the many merchant city-states of Faerun. And yeah, there were a bunch of scripts involved with that merchant script, and then there were like the named forts and such, and that campaign was extremely slow, so he decided to scrap it altogether and instead use this campaign as the main campaign, which got rid of the named forts, it got rid of all the forts, it got rid of the merchant script and any other scripts. Essentially it's essentially free from scripts, and this campaign is much more fast. So when you end a turn in this campaign, it's very fast, and you don't have to wait a lot. But if you play the merchant script campaign, then it's extremely slow and takes forever to load. And not only when you start the campaign it takes like 10 minutes, but also or feel like it takes 10 minutes, maybe it takes 5 minutes. And then when you are in the campaign it takes forever, especially in the late game, due to the many diplomats that are named merchants that spawn for I believe either they spawn for factions or they spawn for the slave faction, I don't know. But it's a very slow campaign, so I don't recommend playing it. But the thing is that on the 13th of June 2020, I believe that version 0.1 was released of this mod, and that version was a custom battle only release with 10 factions, but there was a folder that was outside of the main folder that included the original campaign map with the named forts and the merchant script, and I decided to move it over because Warcraft Hero, the user Warcraft Hero at Total War Center, he had for version 0.2 released on October 15th, 2020, and then updated with a patch on October 20th, 2020. He had fixed the campaign, so it no longer crashed. The original one in version 0.1 crashed, and then Warcraft Hero fixed the issue, so it became stable, and he added the ability to add custom campaigns, but only for hot seat, not for the single player. And so I had the option to move over the other campaign to the custom campaign menu, which I did. Then I updated that campaign to be up to date with this one, so we had essentially two campaigns, one which is fast with no named forts and with no merchant script, and then we had one with the named forts and with the merchant script as a bonus campaign. But then I found out that the scripts made the campaign so slow that it wasn't really worth playing. But I decided that I still wanted to keep it, so I kept it in the files and continued to update it, but I felt like I wanted something in between. I wanted the named forts, which represent all the other places on the map, because in Medieval 2 you can only have 199 regions max if you do not use the M2TV EUP tool, Medieval 2 Total War Engine Overall Project tool. So you needed to add forts if you wanted the rest of the areas. Maybe using the M2TV EUP you can add even more cities. I don't know. It's probably possible because they can add more than 500 units. So then they probably can add more than 199 cities too. I know that using the M2TV EUP tool, the most modern one, you can also make like forts function as cities, and you can recruit from forts and such, which would be perfect for a campaign with a million forts all over the continent. And as I said, the merchant script campaign was so slow that it wasn't really worth playing, and that's probably also why Vladimir, the original creator, why he decided to scrap it for this campaign. And I decided to make a third campaign where I removed essentially all the scripts that weren't needed. I removed the merchant script, I removed any scripts in relation to the merchants and selling items and such. And by removing all of these scripts, the campaign became much faster, and I still kept the named forts. So you have essentially three campaigns. You have the campaign that doesn't have any scripts, this one, the main campaign. Then you have the merchant script campaign, the one with all the scripts that were made for the mod, that is very slow, but is the original one intended for the mod, and it's stable now. It's not crashing. And then we have the third one, where I got rid of any scripts that weren't needed to make the campaign faster, but I kept, essentially I got rid of all the scripts except the named forts. So it's essentially, if you want to play a campaign with lots of forts all over the place that are named, that represent towns, cities, villages, fortresses and such, then you have that. And that campaign, unlike the merchant campaign, is much faster, but it's still slower than this main campaign. So you can say this one is super fast, and then you have the named forts campaign that is almost as fast as this, slightly slower. Then you have the merchant script campaign that is extremely slow, but there's a huge difference between the merchant campaign and the other two in terms of how fast ending turns are. So if you play this campaign, you will have very fast end turns. If you play the named forts campaign, you will have slightly slower end turns, but still very fast. And if you play the merchant one, then you will have really slow turns. So I wouldn't recommend playing the merchant one unless you're curious about how the original campaign was intended to be, because that was the original one, but it became so slow that he decided to scrap it for Ludwig decided to scrap it for this one. And if you still want the forts but do not want it to be extremely slow, then play the one that I added as a third campaign, which is like the best of two campaigns. Essentially you have fast turns like this campaign, but you still kept all the forts with names like in the merchant campaign, but got rid of the merchant scripts and such so that it doesn't take forever. And as I said, the Kingdom of Impeltur was the faction, the Saxons were the faction used for the script. And so because this campaign got rid of all the scripts, including the forts and such, we can have them playable here. But if you have them playable in the other two campaigns, then you will end up seeing everything everywhere, because you have all the princess names all over the place, and you can also move them. If you go to the agent tab, then you can move all the agents that are princesses, and they are just names. So it didn't work well, but I still kept the faction in those campaigns as the AI, but they are removed as a playable faction. They work fine as an enemy faction. So essentially, if you want to play the Kingdom of Impeltur, you should play the main campaign, and otherwise you can play all three, because this faction wouldn't work well in the other two, as I didn't know it was the faction used for the scripts. And I found out after adding them, so it was too late to change the faction to something else. Alright, so this is the main campaign. You've already seen a video that I did 2 weeks ago where I let the AI play their custom campaigns. We have the merchant script campaign and the named forge no merchant script campaign. The merchant script campaign is the original campaign that Vladimir had intended for the mod, and the original modders had intended. It's so slow that it isn't worth playing really, unless you're very curious. So named forge campaign on the other hand is very fast and has all the forge on the map. So one main difference between the named forge campaign and because the difference between these two are that one is faster and one is much slower, and that the slower merchant campaign has a bunch of additional scripts with added gameplay features, but it's not worth it due to how slow the campaign becomes. And the difference between the main campaign and this one is that this one has the forts, which has the effect on the campaign that the AI is more likely to turtle. So if you play this campaign, you will have less of an aggressive AI, and they will instead prefer maybe to turtle in the forts and be more defensive. They won't expand as much because they use the fort to defend their borders and such. So it's more of a turtle campaign for the AI. Still fun and they still attack, but you can count on the AI using the forts, and as such they turtle more in this campaign. In the other campaign, where there are no forts, they are more aggressive, so they will expand more early on in the other campaign, and in this one they will defend more and be more turtle, more of a turtle AI. And the merchant campaign is similar to this one, but with the additional scripts it's very slow, because it has constant streams of diplomats in the form of merchants that are spawning, and you can also sell stuff and stuff. It's an interesting campaign, but I recommend the main campaign over the named forge campaign, and the named forge campaign is the more impressive one in how it looks, with more areas represented and such, but it might not be the best one if you want the AI to be less of a defensive player and more of an aggressive one. Then the other campaign might be better. But if you do not mind that they turtle more in this campaign, then this one might be more impressive. If you play hot seat, I believe this one would be better. It has all the forts with names and such. Of course, we are not using them to the EUP tool, so we cannot recruit units from the forts, and they are not cities. They represent cities, towns, villages and such, but they cannot recruit anything. But you have them as extra defensive areas essentially, and it's more impressive. If you play the hot seat with friends, I believe that this one would be more fun. But as against AI, the other one might be better, simply because the AI is more aggressive in it and they do not have a lot of forts. The forts make the AI turtle. Okay, and all three campaigns should be stable, but this one is so slow that I don't recommend it. The other two, on the other hand, are fast enough, and all of them should be stable. Alright, and looks a bit different here in the UI, but we have the same factions, except that we remove the Kingdom of Impultur. That's why the rebels or manufactions are here instead of here, because Impultur had that problem with all the forts being named and using Impultur's faction for the names. They had no choice but to remove them, as they were kind of unfair. In a hot seat it would be unfair to play as Impultur in this campaign or in the merchant campaign. Of course, against AI in single player you could do it, but yeah, it would be still be annoying if you go into the agent tab and then have a million princesses you can move, and then all of them are just names for the forts, and moving one of them took forever. Took like 3 minutes before they moved. So yeah, but the AI never moved the names, fortunately. Okay, so we have all of these factions. So 2 years ago, or 3 years ago in 2023, late 2023, so almost 2 years ago, I believe, slightly more than 2 years ago, I believe I didn't know much about Dungeons and Dragons or such. I had played Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance 1 with some people in 2012, parts of it, and I knew about Baldur's Gate 1 and such, but I never played them. I heard about them when I was a kid, so I knew about some of the games, and of course I knew about Dungeons and Dragons. I had Dungeons and Dragons Online, the cover and the CDs, but I never played it. I believe I got it from someone and never played it because I believe it wasn't free back in the day. Free to play, you needed to pay monthly or something. Then I never really tried it. But anyway, I didn't know much about Dungeons and Dragons, but I watched a bunch of lore videos on YouTube back in 2023 and 2024, and I read up on Wikipedia about many of the units, companies, mercenary companies and factions. Now I know a lot about it. But I'm not an expert because I've never read any of the books and such, but I've read a lot on the Wikipedia, and I watched a bunch of stuff on YouTube. I also watched someone play through Baldur's Gate 1 and I believe its expansion and Baldur's Gate 2, so I know about those games, but I've never really played them. I do own Baldur's Gate 1 and 2 and the enhanced editions, but I never really played them. I have them installed, but I didn't like that the characters are so small that you hardly can see them. I like Baldur's Gate Dark Alliance, however, because it's more like Diablo 2, and I like that type of game, so I will play it at some point. I have the PC versions of the game. But anyway, I tried Baldur's Gate 3 as well, but my graphics card is too old. I believe I get a black background after a while when leaving a zone, and it couldn't be fixed. Even with the latest update for my graphics card, it still wasn't fixed. I need a new computer for that game. Otherwise there will be black backgrounds. It wasn't compatible with my old graphics card. I believe I have an NVIDIA 780 graphics card. Anyway, so we have this campaign, and we have all of these factions, 22 factions. With the Impulter faction it would be 23. 10 new factions since the 0.2 release of 2020. We have 11 new factions, but 10 new unique rosters. 2 factions are sharing units, but some of them are of course made unique in the campaign for both. They share the militia, they share certain leads, and they have a bunch that are unique to both. All of them were originally, I believe, King of Tamara, but divided to make Impulter. Okay, so I wanted to play as the Elves of Cormanthyr, or the Empire of Mölorand, or the Teian Nation. But I think we will go with the Elves, because I tried playing as all 3 of these during development. Played for at least 3 hours as Mölorand, and as for the Elves I played a bit, 40 turns or so, and then with Tei I played a bit as well. And I really liked the Elves because they had an interesting situation where they are very weak in this area in the forest, and then they are strong over here, far away in Evreska. So you need to move troops here to help fight Cormyr, the Kingdom of Cormyr, the Republic of Sembia and others, or you can expand here against the rebels here and Baldur's Gate, Waterdeep, Lurvar, Shadowvar, etc. Center him. And what I did when I played was I moved armies to the forest to help defend here, but it was very difficult because they start with very few units here and would be easily conquered by all the enemy armies here if you do not send reinforcements. But even with reinforcements you can probably win a few battles thanks to the mages, but then you will run into trouble because the enemy has way more armies here. The difference now is that I added rebel garrisons for every region, and when I played earlier there were no rebel garrisons in these areas. So now there are rebels with all the rebel garrisons have full armies, by the way. So we have like the King of Cormyr fighting Cormyran rebels. We have Sembia fighting Sembian and Cormyran rebels. We have Centarim fighting Centarim rebels and Cormyran rebels. So they are busy fighting the rebels, which are minor factions. So each city is essentially a city-state most of the time. So they have their own armies, and some of the units are shared, but most of the units are mercenary companies that can be used by the playable factions but are useless garrisons for the minor factions. They have city-states, and Sembia Cormyr I will have to fight the city-states before they start fighting the elves. When I played, there were no garrisons here. They might have had their leader and nothing else, or it was an empty area. And so they immediately started attacking the elves, which was very difficult. And when I finally reached the area with an army to defeat the Sembian armies, I believe defeated 2 armies. I played on an older computer that lagged in battle. So yeah, it wasn't very fun to play with lag, but I managed to win 1 or 2 battles, and then I was kind of weak, and then the enemy still had many armies, so I would have lost over time. Like Pyrrhic victories, where you win the battles but you still lose the war because they have more armies and you lose too many each battle, and at the end you will be overrun. But now, because of the city-states in the form of minor factions or rebels, they will be busy before, so you get time to build up and stuff before they start attacking you. And I thought it would be fun to place the elves. His senator of the war said he was gonna play, I thought he was gonna play the elves. So that's why I held back, because if he was gonna play the elves, then I wanted to play maybe the Teian Nation or the Empire of Mullerand. But as he hasn't started any campaign yet, I decided to go with elves. I like their situation the most. The Mullerand faction is a huge nation and empire, and I didn't really want to control a huge nation. And yeah, I felt like it would be too much, and the Teian nation the same. They have some cool units, but I wanted to play a weaker nation. So we have one area, Evereska, with a huge stack and great economy and all the buildings. Essentially, we have all the units available. Then we have 2 areas in the forest, in the Cormanthyr forest. So the faction is named Elves of Cormanthyr. Essentially the coalition of the elves of the Cormanthyr forest. Cormanthyr is the faction and Cormantor is the forest. The difference is this letter here. It's an O for the forest, Cormantor, and the faction is named Cormanthyr. Okay, and this area is like a large town or so, a town or a large town, and very empty. We have like no units there at all. And then we have a city here, Metropolis, I believe. A powerful area but with no units, so we need to build up. And then we have this strong area with a large force and all the units available, so we could send reinforcements here to help while building up, or we could focus on this area and expand against our enemy, the Shadowar here, or rebels, before our neighbors take them. And then we could also build up here, but it will be more difficult then to defend this area if we focus on this area. But we will see, and any rebel area on the map now has a full garrison, so it won't be a walkover. I believe when I play tested, it was difficult to defend the forest against Sembia and Cormyr, but it was very easy to take rebel areas because they had like one leader or no garrisons at all, so you could just walk in essentially. That won't be the case anymore. Now all the rebels have garrisons, so it will be hard to even fight the rebels. You might have to avoid fighting rebels essentially, and focus on our own areas and focus on the main enemies. We'll see. Alright, so the Elves of Cormanthyr. You can play a short campaign or a long campaign. Faction strength have the typical, this is not updated, it's still a VIP, but the elves are typical elves. They have good archers, good mages, and they have decent, their basic units, swordsmen, spearmen, etc. are like the medium troops of the humans, essentially. They are better. They have fewer troops available, but fewer units available. It's a smaller roster, but they have like their quality, their basic stuff is like the medium stuff of other factions, and their elite stuff is really good, and they have lots of mages. They also have access to mercenaries, and yeah, they are pretty good, and this text is not changed. So as for you need to hold 15 regions in the short campaign, 40 regions in the long campaign, including Kars, High Castle, Illenglade, Evereska, which we start with, Arshen Bridge, Harrowdale, Semra, Mitranor, Old Elven Court, Tangled Trees, Semberholm, High Moon, Schabenford, and Shadowdale. But I believe we have a Semra as well, and Tangled Trees. And the Old Elven Court is the Dark Elf or Drow area. It's held by a lot of monsters in this version because we had no Drow, but if we add a Drow faction in the future, they will have the Old Elven Court as their capital, because the year is 1372 DR, and during that year I believe that the remnants of the Drow army that fled from Mitranor, they had their fortifications at the Old Elven Court, so that would be the Dark Elf capital if we had a Drow faction. We have spoken about it, we have written about it, but it's not certain yet. But if we do, the Old Elven Court will be the Drow capital. Now it's held by a bunch of monsters, orcs, gnolls and other stuff, goblins, and then Mitranor, the old like Elven capital. I believe that it's held by Shadower rebels. Yeah, the Netherrealm humans. They are humans with dark powers. They are holding Mitranor. So there are a huge Shadower army there, but it's a minor faction army. It's not the faction of the Shadower, it's a rebel army, but they use essentially everything from their roster. And the Old Elven Court has like all the monsters that fit the area essentially, because we didn't have any Drow. If we add Drow rebels, we'll also add them to the Old Elven Court, but it would be more fun with the faction. We'll see. I believe it was Asturbanipal, the guy who made all the models for the 10 new factions, he and 2 of the older ones. He was the one that wanted to make the Drow as a faction, and I think both me and Kral or Band Chieftain, who worked on Orcs of the War, we also wanted Drow, the Dark Elves. So if they are added, because I could add the faction, and Kral or Band could do the art, and yeah, Asturbanipal would do the models, but it depends on Asturbanipal, because without the models we cannot add it. But he has said already that he will do mercenaries, that will certainly be added to the Old Elven Court, but if he does, so if he makes the entire roster for faction, they will also probably start in this area. And the thing is that the elves, their main capital is over here with a huge army and everything available essentially, and then they are very very weak here. So if we had the Dark Elves start here at the Old Elven Court, then they would probably steamroll these areas, but it wouldn't really matter much as the elves, their main base is over here anyway. So yeah, the Dark Elves would start here if they were ever added. They are a potential new faction we might add. Okay, and Mitranor is over here, held by the Shadower rebels. Okay, so we need to hold a bunch of areas in the short campaign and in the long campaign. The only difference here is besides 15 regions in the short campaign and 40 regions in the long campaign that we need to hold. We also need to eliminate factions, Kingdom of Cormanthyr and the Center Rim. Cormanthyr is a faction down here. Humans, Knights, they are a good faction. And the Center Rim is an evil faction of humans that also includes like Ogre mercenaries and Beholder mercenaries and stuff. Evil, that's an evil faction, but they are spread out. They have bases down here, they have bases next to Evereska, they have bases over here. They will be harder to kill, but if one is lucky, the areas in other places might be taken by other factions, like the Kalimshan Empire might take their areas over here. Over here they might lose to others, like Baldur's Gate and the Shadowar. And here maybe to the King of Impetur or the Mara maybe, or Cormyr, Zambia. So yeah, we need to defeat the King of Cormyr and the Center Rim. Cormyr is down here next to the Commander Forest, and the Center Rim have their main bases over here, so it makes sense. The long campaign, then we also add the Republic of Zambia, they are down here next to Cormyr. They are not friends with Cormyr. And we have the Empire of the Shadow next to Evereska. I think we'll take the long campaign. The problem with this mod is that we have very bad loyalty in certain regions. I try to fix that and improve it, but it's still not perfect. So we might have revolts here and there. By the way, in the release of the 08 beta, I kept it like it was in the desk strat. Essentially, I kept the rebelling characters because for the Teian nation, for example, generals are supposed to betray you and such. That's how the game was intended to be, but I don't like playing with rebelling characters. So for this campaign I have disabled the rebelling characters entirely. So my generals will never betray me, even if they are not loyal. They can't betray me because I changed the files and disabled that, so we won't have any revolting characters or rebelling characters, but the cities can still revolt. So if you take a city, it can still revolt to the enemy or to the rebels or something, but your own generals will not betray you. If you download the mod on ModDB, you will still have rebelling characters. I kept that for the main release, but changed it for my own campaign. I didn't feel it was right to change that as it was intended by the original creator Ludwig, that there would be rebelling characters and such. It's lore accurate, but for my campaigns I never want rebelling characters. I don't find it very fun when a character, if I have 10 generals and let's say I have 3 generals, each with a huge army, I don't find it very fun when that army betrays me and I lose the entire army that I spent time building up. So I removed rebelling generals so that I will not lose any of my armies. But this doesn't mean that I won't lose cities to revolt. They can still revolt. Okay. No battle time limit. Show CPU moves. Don't really need that, but I think we'll keep it. Very hard difficulty. I don't want cities to revolt. I think we'll put it on easy difficulty. Battle will be medium. Easy because might make it easier with the revolts. Otherwise I would have put this on very hard actually, but because this beta has some issues with revolt, we will go with easy difficulty. Okay, so we could read about Elves of Cormanthyr. This text has not been divided into parts, but that's fine. We'll change that in future so it's easy to read. Okay, the Elven realm of Cormanthyr, sitting on the great forest of Cormanthyr to the northwest of the inner sea, is over 5 millennia in age. During this time it saw the rise and fall of many human civilizations and petty kingdoms, as well as that of the great Mithranor, built in the heart of the elven lands and shared with all friendly peoples. In the fall of Mitranor and the elven court, however, many of the elves left the forest for the distant island of Evermeet, leaving most of the region empty, without a ruler, and suffering the attack of bands of drow, dark elves from the Underdark. There are no drow or elves, dark elves in this mod, by the way. Still need to add drow. They are not in the mod currently. Since the remaining elves mostly keep to themselves, their wealth should be measured in their powerful magic and extraordinary craftsmanship. Even though the elves do not feel a large army, they can be fearsome in battle. Elves of Cormanthyr are also allied with their kinsmen in the hidden fortress of Evereska, and can deploy great magic and some of the most skilled warriors of Toril. So essentially the elves here are the elves of Cormanthyr, and then the ones from the Cormanthyr forest, because this is the area of the Cormanthyr forest. And then we have Evereska. They are a different group of elves, high elves, etc. But both of them are combined into one faction here. And they are very weak in this area because, as we read, most of the elves of the Cormanthyr forest have left for the ice of Evermeet, but we still have a strong presence in Evereska. Okay, we need to defeat a bunch of factions. The King of Cormyr and the Republic of Zembia are the two neighbors to the Cormanthyr forest. We need to fight together with rebels. Then we have to center him up here, but even if we defeat them, they have areas over here too, next to Impultur. They have areas over here, they have areas over here, so the center will be harder to kill off. The Shadowar has only this area, I believe, and an area up here, two areas, I believe. Lots of generals, so there will be battle here, and here, and here. And there are rebels all over this place. If we take them before Baldur's Gate and Waterdeep and others, Lurar, then we could become pretty strong here. But if we send the army to the forest, then these areas will probably fall to other human factions. Okay, we'll take the long campaign. I have never played this on easy difficulty, and I had some problems with revolts, even though I tried to fix it, but we will see. This is also the campaign with the forts, and I believe there is a difference between population size. It didn't change the original population sizes too much in this campaign, but in the main campaign I tried to lower it down to minimum because I thought that would reduce the revolts. So this one might have more revolts than the main campaign. This campaign has the forts. I believe I used that when I play tested it as the elves. It's more fun, I think, when we have lots of forts and stuff. So let's play with it. And yeah, this is my first campaign that I will play on my YouTube channel. I did play in the summer of June of 2024. I played a bit as the Empire of Mulleren in the campaign, but back then we didn't even have all the factions, and we didn't have any rebels on the map. We didn't have any mercenaries. It was like I played with Muller, and after I added them, we had a bunch of new factions, but not all the new factions, and it was very bare bones compared to now. This is the first time I played the actual released version, and even when I played the elves the last time, it was the most recent faction I played tested as. I believe we didn't have the rebels on the map. We had some of the rebels, I believe all the rebels in this area and down here. The rebels over here, but the rest were empty. Now we have rebels everywhere, so it's better. Let's start the game. Good, it didn't crash. I had some issues on this computer when I changed stuff in the files where it decided to crash after the update with the DirectX stuff. Well, it worked fine on the other computer with the same changes, and yeah, that's why I was worried it would crash. This is the named forts campaign.